Greetings, Scribblers! Kent Shawn here, and today we delve into the web of madness and lies that is known as outlining. This video is a response to a question from a friend across the pond, Richard Holliday.
Richie, this one's for you!
First of all, Richard, we here at the Kent Shawn YouTube channel would like to congratulate you on your taste in YouTube videos. Second, you have come to the right place to witness my awe-inspiring advice on the topic of outlining, except for one problem. I suck at outlining.
He really does. Don't get me started.
I started out my writing journey as a hardcore pantser with no idea where my stories were going. Only in the last few years have I managed to convince myself that outlining can save me the brutal agony of writing myself tens of thousands of words off into the writing wilderness without even a trail of breadcrumbs to find my way back.
Breadcrumbs? Why'd you use breadcrumbs? Your phone has GPS.
Old people, am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Smartass. Richard, I do not claim to be an expert on outlining, but I will share with you the process I used on my most recent novel, Charged. This isn't a video about story ideas, and I probably will do one in the future. But where you start the outlining process has a lot to do with where you are in coming up with a concept. In my novel, Children of Doom, it was a what-if question. What if there were a powerful race of immortals millions of years old roaming the earth? I did not have any conflict figured out, or any characters, just a what-if. For my novel Parallels, I knew I wanted there to be a group of friends, probably college kids, who learn that there's another dimension where all your dreams can come true. But the only way to open the door to this paradise is to kill yourself. For my book, The School, all I had was Ranger School in Space. Wherever you're at in developing your concept, don't worry. The first thing I encourage people to do is decide what kind of book you want to write. There's nothing wrong with a little comparison here. You might say, I want to write a sprawling space opera like Star Wars, only without Jar Jar Binks.
I like Jar Jar.
That's a good way to get written out of the will. Whatever stage of concept development you're in, the next step is clear. It's time to banish your filters, self-consciousness, and all those other limiting factors we use to keep from getting kicked out of parties. It's time to brainstorm! Here is where we really go to town. Write down everything that comes into your head about the situation, the characters, the world you want to play in, and any awesome scenes or moments you'd love to see in the story. Okay, so what's the hero's name? How about something heroic, grand like Kent?
No, our hero isn't everyman type. Let's call him Bob.
Do not stop and ask yourself if it's any good. Just let the ideas flow. We really want to fill pages here. I like to go through and highlight ideas that really gave me a charge. That way, when I come back and read again, I can see if they affect me the same way. When you hit on an idea for a great scene, great villain, or some other critical piece of storytelling, I like to come back to my brainstorming page and stretch my imagination with a little trick I like to call...
It's called the power of 10!
Here I like to come up with 10 very different ways that I could bring the character or idea to life.
If the idea was good, why mess with it?
The hard truth, Scribblers, is that when we try to imagine our perfect villain or climactic scene, the first thing that usually comes to mind is probably an overdone trope or cliche. It's really our memory trying to solve the problem as efficiently as possible. For me, the secret is to force myself to think of the problem from different angles. Time to go ahead and do some of that resource-expensive imagination work before I move on to story structure.
He needs an amazing weapon. How about sword?
No, an axe.
Pink axe.
It's not pink, it's light purple.
Ooh, how about hammer?
Did you pick the hammer just because you like the Thor guy in the movies?
Maybe.
Ha! Then Bob gets a shield too. A lot of my best ideas have come from forcing myself to come up with 10 different versions of the hero at the mercy of the villain scene, or 10 different versions of the mentor. Step number 2, I figure out the beginning hook, middle build, and ending payoff. I am a big fan of traditional 3-act structure. Act number 1, we introduce the hero, the world he lives in, and hook the reader with a dramatic question. In Act 2, we add complications and setbacks. as the hero meets allies, makes enemies, and gains knowledge and abilities that will aid them on their quest. And finally, Act 3, where our heroes go down in defeat, or win the day, and teach readers a valuable lesson in the process. I try to get each of these acts down to one sentence each. For example, here are a couple of popular books broken down to a single sentence per act. Moby Dick. Act 1. Monomaniacal whaler Ahab secures a ship and crew to hunt down the whale that almost killed him. Act 2. Ahab hunts Moby Dick. Act 3. Ahab fights Moby Dick to the death. And here's The Great Gatsby. Act 1. Gatsby moves across the bay from his true love. Act 2. Gatsby does whatever it takes to get his true love back. Act 3. Gatsby covers up his true love's crime and pays the ultimate price for his obsession. Now that we know what each act of our story is about, it's time to start putting some flesh on those bare story bones. I've done this next step several ways. 15 plot points, save the cat, but lately I've used the hero's journey as my guide to craft the major moments of the story. I did a 3-part video series on the hero's journey, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. Please feel free to go check them out, links are in the description. I use Scrivener for the next part of the process. I know some people really like using corkboards and note cards, but for me, for some reason, that method can be problematic. Scrivener helps me keep this next part nice and neat, so I lay out a folder for each act and a note card for each stage of the hero's journey. There will be some stages you already have a pretty good idea of what you want to happen. Go ahead and write those down first. Next, I go back to my brainstorming sheet and look for ideas that might match up with a stage of the journey I'm not so sure about. Then I start weaving things together. I keep a lot of it vague, one-line type stuff. Then as things start to come together, I jot down details, start character sheets for the allies and enemies we'll meet on the way, and fill in the stages till I'm fairly sure I know what's happening. The next step is to ruthlessly hunt down cliches and boring scenes. And once again, I use the power of 10 to get the old noggin to work.
Ooh, he fights a fire-breathing dragon.
They all breathe fire. How about something different?
How about he throws rocks?
Got it. Gale Force winds.
Yes! It spits gross water.
Make up your mind already!
Approximately how many scenes I'll need for the book. This is my formula. I take my estimated word count and divide by my preferred scene length. I like to write what I call popcorn length scenes, which are between 1,500 and 2,000 words. So if I want to write a 120K fantasy novel, I take 120, divide by 2, and get, you guessed it, 60 scenes!
Science!
Now I know in 3-act structure, Act 1 is around 25% of the total length, Act 2 is 50%, and Act 3 is 25%. So that also tells me how many scenes in each act. So I go ahead and fill in blank note cards for the scenes that aren't already taken by the 12 stages of the hero's journey. Now I try and fill in the blanks with interesting scenes, and then move them around like colorful literary puzzle pieces. I use one-sentence descriptions to describe what happens in the scene, where it might take place, and what characters might make an appearance. It has structure. It has the stages of the hero's journey. And we've been discovering all the little problems we're going to need to solve while writing. Don't rush the outlining process. Let your mind chew on these problems over a period of days and weeks. You might be surprised some of your best ideas will drop out of nowhere while you're washing the dishes.
Since when do you do dishes?
Or mowing the lawn.
When in the world do you mow?
Now, some of you real story folks out there might be saying, you left some things out, like the inciting incident, the all is lost moment, and a few others. These elements are built right into the hero's journey, but I do plan to do a full-scale video on all of these topics in the near future, so stay tuned. Also, in case you haven't heard, submissions are open for DR Ranger writing and Kent Shawn's awe-inspiring, cup-destroying, pencil-snapping, pen-draining, head-balding, metaphor-mangling, sentence-spewing, cash reward-reaping short story competition. Of Doom! All kinds of stories are welcome, 5,000 words or less. Enter for your chance to win. First place wins
$100!
second and third place win
$25!
Top 5 stories get featured on our websites and in videos.
You'll be famous! Ish.
Link to a video with the details and links to the channels of our guest judges, Temek Soul and Z Falk, are in the description. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter, and please come visit my website, kentshawn.com. Till next time, scribblers, butts in seats, fingers on keyboards.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with this anymore.